Changing your direction, changing your mind about something, changing your ideas does not equal failure. And this video today is going to be all about explaining why that is the case and empowering you to feel that you are able to embrace change and adaptability. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want to just run through a little analogy with you, just to give you a bit of an idea of where I'm coming from with this. So just take a few minutes, it's not going to take very long, just close your eyes with me. And I want you to imagine a river. Now it might be a river that you visited, you might have one near your house, or it could just be an imaginary river, but just imagine a river. Now I want you to think about the river itself. I want you to focus to begin with on the river bank and just notice the qualities of the river bank. Notice how the river bank is a strong container for the water within it. It might be made of stones, rocks, mud, clay, but it's a strong, solid foundation. It doesn't change, it doesn't really move much. It stays where it is and it holds the water to create the river. Now think about the water itself, the water within the riverbank, and notice how different it is from the riverbank itself, how it's constantly moving and changing, and it changes its pace, it changes its direction. There'll be some parts of the river where the water it's smooth and it's tranquil and it just gently trickles over the rocks. And there'll be other places where it's fast and it's rapid and it just is all consuming. But the thing that I'm trying to get you to focus on here is the difference between the two. And now you wouldn't go up to that river and say to the water in that river, you need to stop flowing. You need to stop moving. You need to stop filling up every area that you can fill of that riverbank. You need to be one pace. I want you to be a fast river, or I want you to be a slow river. You can't do that. And even if man was to try and interfere with that river, that water would still remain this ever-flowing source, even if you were to evaporate it all. Even as water evaporated, it would still move and it would change. And so what I'm trying to get at with this analogy is this is what has been coming to me this week, is that the feminine energy does not want to stay still. The feminine energy is about life. It is, it's life-giving. As women, we birth life through our bodies. And the feminine, it wants to move around, it wants to adapt, it wants to change. That is where it feels comfortable, just like the water. And so, as I was saying, we wouldn't want to ask the river to stop flowing, to change the way it is. So why do we feel as feminine beings, or as beings who sit comfortably in that feminine energy, why do we feel that we have to move our being and our way of doing things to a more masculine way, just because this has kind of become society's norm? Well, the truth is we don't. If you've closed your eyes, you can open them now. And so this is what's kind of been coming up for me this week, is that I've been really experiencing these, I've kind of been going through the fire with all of this, really. It's been a really up and down week, emotionally and energetically and just everything. And this has come up in my business. So if you don't know my journey, I'm in the beginning of starting up my business, of working for myself, of creating something for myself. And it's bringing up a lot of things. It's bringing a lot of things to the table for me, which is great, but it's also exhausting sometimes, as I'm sure you'll be able to relate to. Anything that changes your beliefs and your way of thinking is, it takes some time to sort of integrate your mindset and your energy with a new way of being. And so this is what has been coming up, is this idea that this thinking that I've got into around changing my mind and not having necessarily a clear direction is failure. And the only reason that I'm thinking that this is failure is because it really is not a masculine way of doing things. So when we are, when we've been at school and probably when we've been in a job, we as a society have very much favoured businesses and running those kinds of things from a masculine energy. And it's understandable because it's only been, very recent in history that women have started to move into this area of working, of creating their own businesses. And so, of course, predominantly masculine energy has been the thing that has driven this way of being. And the masculine energy is about structure. Think of the riverbank. It's firm. It doesn't really move. It's structure, it's strategy, it's direction. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, it's an amazing energy to be in. There are lots and lots of businesses that have been created on this energy that are very successful. But the thing that's been coming up for me this week is because, so a little bit of backstory. Before I had my first daughter, I worked in the corporate world. And this was no fault of the companies or, even societies. It's just that, it was run from a very, masculine energy basis. And I was, I wasn't the same person that I am today. I was quite unconscious of this fact. I was very unconscious of the fact that I was stepping into that masculine energy every time I went to work. And I wasn't embracing my feminine. I wasn't embracing the fact that I could use this different energy in the feminine to do my work. And so what happened was I basically found I was getting burnt out because I was operating from an energy all of the time that didn't feel natural. Now, of course, it doesn't matter whichever energy you feel more comfortable in, we need a mixture of both. But for myself, preferring that feminine energy when I was stepping into that masculine place all of the time, it was just draining me, and I was feeling unfulfilled and just exhausted. And so when I began creating my own business, I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted to do this differently. I wanted to create this business from the feminine energy, or from a place where the feminine energy played a big role in the creation of this business. So I knew that I had to have structure, and I knew that I had to have these masculine containers, but I wanted to utilize those skills of intuition, of creativity, of flow, of adaptability more so. I wanted, because I wanted ease, I wanted enjoyment, I wanted fulfillment in my business. And so I created things quite differently because I was operating from this feminine energy place. And so let me just check my notes, sorry. Yeah, so what's kind of come up for me this week has been that I've got to this point where I have changed my business approach quite a few times now. I've changed my sort of target audience and, who I'm trying to create a community and a following from. And what really happened this week was I kind of got stuck with it. I knew I needed to make another change that was quite significant in my business. But I had all of these beliefs, all of this thinking coming up in my head that if I change again, then I'm just going to be failing. I'm not going to be showing my brand, I'm not going to be showing my business, I'm not going to be showing myself that I have clear direction, that I have focus, that I have strategy. And I really struggled to move beyond that point. I really thought it then brought up all these feelings of, well, maybe I'm not supposed to create a business, maybe this isn't for me, and all of those kinds of things. And thankfully, I got into this place of alignment. I managed to raise my vibration somehow because I let in this voice that was calling me to the river, was calling me to this thinking around change and adaptability and all of those kinds of things. And it made me view it in a very different way. And so this is what this video is all about today, is to just take you through some of the thinking and some of the thoughts that have been coming up for me this week, especially whilst I'm still in this energy, because I'm really conscious I want to pass that kind of energy on to you because it's very fresh for me still. That change and adaptability, changing your mind, changing your direction, trying new things, testing, tweaking, is not failure. It is something to be celebrated. It is you operating from your feminine energy. So just let that kind of sink in for a minute. Feel the empowerment that that actually brings. Change and variety is not failing. It's not an unwanted thing. It's something to be celebrated, and it's something to be embraced. It's a new way of doing things. Yes, we can agree on that. But it doesn't mean that it's not right, and it doesn't mean that it's not wanted. So just kind of sit in that for a minute and just let that kind of like weight lift off your shoulders of, you know, you might be experiencing this in your own life, maybe in your business, or at work, or even in another area of your life, you know, maybe even your relationship. You know, that the feminine wants to move. It wants to constantly change. You know, think back to that river. That water does not stay still. You know, it moves fast. It moves slow. You know, it even changes its form. It can freeze. It can evaporate. You know, it's constantly changing. And so why, as feminine beings, should we not do this in our life, in our businesses? I think that's a pretty darn, like, empowering thing to feel, that there's nothing wrong with it, that it's something to actually be embraced. And so let me just kind of like walk you through how this has come about in my business, because especially if you're struggling in your business or in your career with this, then this might be something that you can really relate to. So initially when I started my business, the audience that I wanted to target was conscious mothers. It was women who had gone on this journey, possibly in pregnancy, but more so probably from having had their first child, where they realised that they really wanted to parent in a different way. They wanted to change their this kind of like ancestral thing of where they had been parented from. So they wanted to show up and be very available. They wanted to be around a lot for their children. You know, like it's an experience that they really wanted to embrace. And they wanted to begin to parent in a way that was gentle, that was forming secure attachments with their children, that was parenting from a place of love and compassion and understanding. And they kind of basically wanted to be the cycle breakers. And this myself was very much what happened to me. I had one very clear way of how I was going to parent before I had children, even whilst I was pregnant. And you know, it'd be quite funny to listen back to some of the things I would like used to say to like friends in my family of like what I would do when I was a parent. But then as soon as I had my daughter, my first daughter, it completely changed. Everything, all of that went out the window, you know, because I was listening to this inner voice of what felt good for me to parent. And I'm not saying that's, you know, this way of parenting, you know, conscious kind of attachment parenting is for everybody. But for me, that is what felt right to me. It's what felt good. So, you know, anything that feels good is what you should be following. And so this was kind of the audience that I wanted to approach, because what I was finding, and this kind of happened on my journey as well, was that these women were so driven and so motivated to change, to make a break in this cycle, to change the way that we were parenting, to raise children who felt very secure in their attachment to their parents, to have all of these freedoms, to allow them to, feel their emotions, express them, experience them, all of that kind of thing, that what I found was happening was their focus was so heavy on this that all of the other kind of areas of their life were being completely forgotten about, really. So, their relationship with their partner, their desire for a career, or not even necessarily a career, but a project that was kind of very much for them, that wasn't them being mum, but, was something, individually for them. Their spiritual path even, and anything else really that they wanted to sort of achieve and do in their life was sort of all being forgotten, because they had this belief that they had to focus so much on being this conscious parent that the thought of anything else, could wait. It could wait until the kids grew up, it could wait till they were older. But what I found in my own experience was this led to very limiting beliefs around all the other areas of my life. So I started to believe that because I was a full-time mum who was very full on with her parenting style, that I couldn't have the exhilarating, passionate, romantic relationship I wanted with my husband. Like, that wasn't, possible. I couldn't have a thriving career. I couldn't build a big empire, which is what, I want to achieve with my business. I want it to have a huge impact on people in the world. And I started to think that those things just weren't possible because I had chosen to parent in a different way. And I knew a lot of women, a lot of friends who also were starting to apply this mindset to their life, because they so strongly wanted to support their children. And, and I completely commend them for that. But they were going down this slippery path of falling into resentment and having the opposite effect on their children that they actually wanted. So they weren't living this truly authentic life. They weren't role modeling to their children what it means to live a life where we follow our desires, where we focus on our own happiness. So we were, and I found myself doing this as well with my children. Like, I would talk about it a lot to them, about all these things of, you follow your bliss and, you do what makes you happy and, be who you want to be. And then I was kind of like going, but I'm not actually doing this in my own life. So how are they ever going to learn to do that if they don't have a physical example of this? And so this was where, my business, was created, was to focus on these women and to support them to realize that they can have it all. They can be who they want to be. They can, they can have the career, they can have the relationship, they can have the abundance, they can have the spiritual journey, whatever it is that they want in life, and still be an available, conscious parent. And so, I kind of, I began this way, and it was going really well. And then, I think doubt and fear kind of crept in, because, it was early in the creation of my business. And I also started to get these kind of weird ideas in my head that because I was very much focusing on a sort of target audience, a group of people who were very hot on their parenting, who, their parenting was a very big aspect of their life, I kind of, for some reason, felt I had to post a lot of content and a lot of information about parenting, and this was something I really didn't want to do. Like, I read a lot of that stuff, I enjoy that, but it doesn't really light me up to talk about it a lot. I wanted to focus on all the other things, about their relationships, about their career, their mindset, their abundance, all that other stuff was what I wanted to focus on. And I think, if I'm being honest as well, you know, I've got a lot of friends who kind of fall into this, like, you know, target audience, like, category. And these are powerful women, you know, like, these are powerful mothers who, you know, they really are determined to make this change in society with this, you know, next generation of children, and parent in a completely different way. And the thought of kind of stepping up and being like a leader to them, and, you know, supporting them on their journey to fulfilling that, whilst also supporting them to have all the other things in their life that they want, it felt like a massive task. And so I think, you know, I think fear kind of crept in, and, you know, confusion. And so anyway, long story short, so I changed my approach. I changed who I was targeting my content towards. And I started to broaden it, and I started to sort of like, you know, well, anybody who's on a spiritual path can gain from this. And I still believe that is the case, but it meant that my values weren't sort of kind of as strong in my messaging. And it all became a bit confusing, really, I think, as to, you know, who I was talking to when I was creating videos, when I was, you know, I was trying to make it fit everybody. And it kind of wasn't working. And so I went back and forth on this. And the whole time I was like, you know, I mean, you can go and check, if you go to the description below, there's the link to my Instagram page. And you can see, if you scroll through my Instagram history, how I have changed. You know, I've updated my profile, and I've even made quite big statements when I'm like, no, this is what I'm doing now, and this is who I'm helping. And, you know, you can see how that's kind of like evolved. And so it got to this point this week where I realized that, you know, where I had originally been wanting to go, it felt more aligned, and, you know, and maybe it was the right thing in the first place. But however, I wouldn't have necessarily got to the confidence with going in that direction if I hadn't have chopped and changed and tried things out, and, you know, been like the river, and, you know, flowed through all these different ideas. And so I realized that I had to change my profile again. And of course, like, throughout this process, you know, I've been changing my YouTube profile, my blog profile, my social media profiles. You know, they've constantly been like updating and changing to, you know, the direction I was sort of taking my business. And I knew I had to do it again. And I just felt physically sick at the idea of changing it again. I mean, you know, I haven't got millions of followers. You know, I've got a relatively small following at the moment. But even the thought of showing up to them and changing again, it was just like, I'm just failing at this. And so this is, you know, where all of this, you know, river analogy and everything has come up for me. And I think it's amazing, really, because the universe was really pulling me to the river this week. I mean, we've got this gorgeous river that's right near where my eldest goes to school. And something has been calling me to that river this week. Something has been trying to get me to go for a walk down by the river. And so on Thursday this week, I took my youngest down there. It was a really gorgeous autumn day. And I just couldn't sort of like contain it anymore. Like, I knew I had to get down to this river, but I wasn't really too sure why. And when I got there, like, even on the walk there, because you can sort of see the river from like up high, you can see like little bits of it. And I was just like, when we got down to the water's edge, I was just mesmerized by it. I just could not stop focusing on the intricate little details of the river, you know, of the sound that it was creating, the way it was moving. Like, it was just so powerful. And I didn't really realize until the other night, when I started writing kind of like the script for today's video, why I was being so drawn to the river. And because it helped to clarify for me, it helped to empower me to realize that changing my mind is not a bad thing. And it does not mean that I don't have focus. It does not mean that I don't have focus in my business, because what it's allowed me to do is it's allowed me to gain even more clarity on where it is that I do want to go. And when you think about the river, that's kind of what it's doing, isn't it? Like the river is constantly trying to it's like trying to find its way like out to the sea, isn't it? It's trying to it's constantly like finding a path to move down, so you see how it spills out and it goes over all the different rocks and it finds the little holes, and it's constantly wanting to keep moving. And so this is basically what I've been doing in my business. Like I have been approaching it from that feminine energy, which was what my desire was to do in the first place. But I think it's because that we are so, we're so unused to operating from this energy that we feel that we have to sit down and we have to create that structure. And we have to do that first as well. We very much believe that we have to create that structure and that strategy first, and then follow action after that. Whereas I'm very much now leaning into the process of starting in the feminine energy, feeling the intuition, feeling the impulses that are coming up. And then once I feel I have clarity on that, then I can start creating structure around that to support it. And so I will be changing my profile again, and I might even do it again quite boldly and announce it and celebrate it and show that this is not me losing focus. This is not me not knowing where I'm taking my business and not having clear direction, but in fact it is me standing in my empowerment and my true authentic self and saying, look, I am doing this to find the best approach for my tribe, for my followers, and to draw those people in. And I'm doing it so that I can show up and be the best version of me for those people in my business. And so this is, really, what I have been, sort of going through this week, and how I'm going to be moving forward is to embrace change and know that change and trying new things and trying new approaches brings more clarity. It allows you to step into that masculine energy with confidence, because the more clarity you have on something, the more you can confidently step into that place where you can drive forward with action, with focus, because you're confident that you're going in the right direction in the first place. So I really wanted to share this with you today. If you're feeling, in a similar situation, and this doesn't have to be in business, this can be in any area of your life, really. This can be, in your relationships, in your parenting. Know that changing your mind and taking some time to find your direction is not a bad thing. It's a thing to be celebrated. It's a thing to be really embraced. So I would love to hear, your thoughts about this. Let me know, are you feeling these same things as well? Do you feel scared at the idea of telling, especially friends and family, people that are close to you? I remember I always used to, when I was younger, kind of get labelled with that I was a bit wishy-washy and that I would change my mind a lot, and that then very much got linked with being inconsistent and unreliable. And it's taken until now in my 30s to realise that I'm not inconsistent and I'm not unreliable. I'm a pretty darn reliable person. It's just that the way in which I approach it is different. I don't approach it from the masculine energy. I approach it from the feminine, which is, I move very quickly and I try things out. It doesn't take very long. I think that's the thing. Once you really get into that flow and you embrace it and you see it as something that you can work with, you don't stay in places very long, so you find out very quickly what it is that you like, what you're good at, what calls to you. You find that out in quite a short space of time because you're very happy to move with it. You don't feel like you have to stay, remaining in one place constantly. And so you know, are you feeling this? Like, are you feeling like you can't make a change because it's going to mean that you're inconsistent? It's going to mean you're unreliable. You know, let me know. Let's get the conversation going, because I don't think this is like really talked about enough. You know, and I'd love to hear, like, you know, where are you at in your journey with that? Like, have you moved through it? And are you now, you know, out the other end where you're like really embracing that? Or are you still sort of like at the beginning, you know, which I sort of almost feel that I am as well, where you're having to, you know, move through those sort of limiting beliefs that are coming up around this. So, you know, let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to hear like where you're at on your journey with this. And so that is, you know, that is it. I'm gonna end the video there, and hope that you enjoyed this video, and that you can find something to relate with, and to inspire you, and to hopefully empower you. You know, change is not a bad thing. Change is not a failure. Change is you just embracing your feminine energy, basically. So yeah, if you like this video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It's lovely to see that this content is helping to inspire and support others. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, because I release videos every Sunday, and any other time I can kind of hop on and create a video, or I'm just so inspired that I've got to share something with you. So make sure you subscribe so that you know when those videos are out on Sunday. And if you know anyone else as well who might be kind of struggling in a similar way in their life, then, you know, please do share this video, because, you know, the more like women we can get embracing their feminine energy, and, you know, recognizing that they can operate from this place and they can use it to their benefit, you know, the better, really. So I'm going to sign it off there. You know, much love, excitement and appreciation to you, and I will see you in the next video.